All right, we're gonna walk through how to change out the spark plugs and do a tune-up on a 2016 Ford F-150. Just gonna replace all 8 of the spark plugs. This is the V8, so this one is pretty easy to do it on. As you can see, you've got obviously your 4 on this side. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then 4. There's plenty of room in there to get to. And then if we go around to the other side of the engine, you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. Even more room on that side to work with. So this is a fairly simple project, not very difficult to get to. Here's my spark plugs that I'm using. You've got the normal stock spark plug for this is Motorcraft SP548. I went with the 548X just because they didn't have enough of the 548 in stock, so spent an extra couple bucks and just got the X model, which will allow it to burn a little bit hotter. So that's the spark plug right there. Tools you're probably going to need is a 5/16 socket. That'll be to help you get the boots off, and then you're going to need a 5/8 spark plug puller. It's going to be a good idea to have some type of extension and probably something that allows you to get in there in an angle. And then I usually just use like a flathead screwdriver. That's going to allow me to get in there and pop off the electrical socket right there, which is probably the most difficult part of this. So we're going to kind of walk through the steps here. We'll do one as an example, kind of walk you through like my process on this. I also recommend getting some dielectric grease to put on the boot as you put it back in there. Just help make a better connection. So let's go ahead and pull one off. I've already done this one right here, the first one. So we're going to move on to the second one here. It's a little bit more difficult to get to. Kind of as you move back, you don't have as much room and you got to work around all these cables and everything. So the first one wasn't too bad. Came out pretty easy. So hopefully this next one goes equally as well. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this while I'm holding onto the camera, so I'll kind of walk through what I typically do to get these off. So I tend to take a screwdriver. You want to be really delicate with these plugs. They tend to break. So I usually just flip that up. Just don't push too hard. You don't want to crack that. This is like a 2-stage release. So that's your first stage right there, is pushing that red up. The second stage is you're going to reach down here and you're going to press down on this little black button right here. And you actually want to push in. So you're going to push that way. You're going to push in and then pull out as you're pressing on that black button. And that'll allow it to release. Like I said, this is probably the most difficult part of the entire process. Let me see if I can do it with one hand. If not, I'll have to put the camera down. So I'm pressing down, pulling in, and then prying back. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this one while I'm holding the camera. So let me go ahead and put the camera down for a second and I'll come back. All right, so got it mostly backed out here to the point where I can actually turn it with just my hand. No longer need the ratchet. So we're just gonna pull it straight out. Oh, my extension came off. Let me try and get that back on. All right, so had to work it a little bit to get it out there, but there it is. So it came out, and that's what we're looking at. So you can see it's a little kind of rusty and such on there. One thing I neglected to mention at the beginning is Ford does recommend that you warm the motor up a little bit, just warm to the touch before trying to pull these out. So if your truck has been sitting cold, you're probably going to want to let it run for about a minute or so just to let that engine warm up, so it doesn't damage the threads or anything like that. So we got this one out. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. Not too bad, but definitely want to replace it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and grab the new one. Like I said, SP548X. We do not want to re-gap these. They should be gapped from the factory. The gap should be fine. One thing you can do if you make a mistake while you're trying to gap these is you can, trying to get it to show it, you can break that little tip, which would be problematic. It wouldn't work, so we don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this back in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the socket. We're going to drop it back in there, and then I'm going to start tightening it by hand just to get those threads aligned, because you don't want to cross thread it. So I'm going to tighten it by hand until we get it started, and then I'll crank down with the ratchet. And we want to put it in the same way we took it out. We want to make sure that we stay center in that hole, just so that we don't mess anything up. All right, so we got it tightened down in there. There is a torque spec to this. I generally don't use a torque wrench. I generally just kind of grab the top. I've kind of got a feel for it, you know, how tight it needs to be. So we'll just tighten those down. I don't know if we'll be able to see down in there. Probably not. Once we get it tightened down, then we basically just put everything back together. So what we're going to do is put a little bit of dielectric grease on the end here. It doesn't take a lot. So, and then squeeze a little bit, and then the tip there. Doesn't take too much. And then we'll put this back on. Basically, put our bolt back on, put our electrical connection back in, and then we'll be done. And then we just got, after this, what, 6 more to go, and we'll be all set. We'll check in a little bit. All right, so got it back on, and we're just gonna push our electric connection in. You wanna push it until you hear that click. Once you hear that click, then you're good. Then you're just gonna press the little red lever down. That'll basically make sure it locks in, and you can tug on it just to make sure that's not coming back out. Once you do that, you successfully changed out a spark plug. So I'm going to go ahead and finish out the rest of these, and then we'll go ahead and give it a start and just make sure that everything looks good and that we're running smoothly. And we'll see you in a bit.